melt is when I'm ocean waves.
Well, today on Nova Legends podcast, I have sharpshooting Tony Stanley. I had Steve Miles earlier this week, and now I have Tony Stanley, another great shooter, one of the best shooters and scorers in the history of Northern Virginia basketball. Tony, nice to meet you, and thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, of course. So just to give folks the broad stretches of your career, because a lot of Washington and Lee folks, Washington Liberty now folks, kind of under the radar, because there was a time that your basketball team was kind of in the shadow of Wakefield a little bit. So you did a lot of great things. And a lot of folks didn't know everything about you, but you were a 97, I believe, Washington Lee grad. Is that right, Tony?
96
grad, 2000 Dayton grad. And you spent the last 21 years playing ball in Europe. And you just recently retired from playing in France. Is that correct?
Yeah. I played 17 professional years on a professional level, and then played 5 more years on an amateur level, just with a small club, or on a real lower level. And I was coaching and passing my coaching degrees at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting. In Europe, you have to have degrees to coach, even in soccer. In America, we don't have that process.
Yeah, that's France. That's France.
Was it worthwhile? Are you glad you did it?
Yeah. I could have actually demanded to skip over the process and get my coaching degree right away, because I played on the highest level possible in France. But it was a good. I think it was a good idea to show my face with the other young guys and other coaches that were actually going through the same training sessions and formations that I went through, and they'll respect you more afterwards. So I went on and went through the process just like everybody else, and it was really good because you get to meet a lot of people, and it's definitely great networking.
Do you think technically and tactically it'll make you a better coach? Do you think we should have licensing in America for coaches?
No, I think it's good the way it is in America. You don't have to have a license to be a good coach. You can have some coaches that can pass tests very easily and be qualified on paper to be coaches, but that doesn't mean you're a good coach.
Yeah.
Coaching comes from inside. It's in you, and I don't think that you'd have to have a piece of paper to validate it.
Yeah, because I was going to ask for Coach Bentley and Coach Dobson's. I want to see their coaching licenses. I don't care how many games they've won, and I want to see some licenses. I talked to Eric Hayes. Eric played for Potomac, and then he played for University of Maryland, had a pro career as well. And one thing that he said was, when you're in Europe, it's only a matter of time before you get hurt. Yeah, you get hurt, and then you're not going to be able to play anymore. Well, you were the exception to that rule. I mean, you had a long career. So what was the key to your longevity? Why were you able to play for so long in Europe? I mean, and you're the kind of guy, when you're a 6'3" guard, you can't afford to get hurt and lose a step. You got to be able to maintain your pace to be able to compete. So how are you able to be durable and stay in competition for so long?
Well, I lifted a lot of weights during the time when I was in college, and that was obligation. With Coach Purnell and the training coach there, we lifted a lot of weights. Once I came out in Europe, I kept on lifting weights maybe for a year and a half, 2 years afterwards, and then I met the guy named Ron Anderson. Played for the Sixers. He was actually living in the same town, the city of Cholet, where I first started playing, and he told me that he never lifted a weight during his whole NBA career. He said, you can just do calisthenics, push-ups, sit-ups, and that's all you need. And he said, and if you do that 3 or 4 times a week for 30 minutes, then your body is just as strong as it is if you were lifting weights. So in doing so, I did that, and I also took a lot of time every week to go to the jacuzzi, the sauna, to really just kind of relax and really recuperate well. And I think the recuperating process allowed me to prevent serious injuries. So a lot of players don't take care of themselves in terms of recuperation. They'll go out, they'll play, they might go party afterwards and not really take that time to give your body a chance to recuperate, and then you're right back into the fire the next weekend. And of course, you know, when you're playing 2 games, 3 games a week, it takes a toll on your body after a few years, and that's what causes a lot of injuries here with the guys that come out here in Europe.
Yeah. So when you start playing in Europe, do you feel like you're missing a lot at home? So you started this brand new life for yourself in a beautiful country. A lot of people would love to have the life you live. A lot of people desire the European pro basketball life. Matter of fact, if you have a foreign passport, EU passport, it might even make you more marketable. But you know, when you first do that, do you have a sense that you're missing things that are going on back home?
No, I stayed in touch with family members and friends back home, ex college teammates, Kobe, you know, Nate Green. I always stayed in contact with a lot of guys back home, and I had a lot of family come here to visit as well. So every time I signed a contract here, professional wise, I always told them I wanted about 8 or 9 round trip tickets from the USA to France, you know, for family members and friends. That way, you know, I wasn't really missing the family too much and missing home too much.
Yeah. Do you enjoy European basketball? Do you enjoy the type of basketball that is played in Europe? And is it much different than what's played in America?
It is. It's definitely a different style of play. European basketball is more team oriented. And here in Europe, you know, you can find yourself playing against a zone at any given time. In NBA, you don't do zone, it's man to man. So the floor is a lot more spread, it's a lot more open, and it gives guys more opportunity to score a lot of points. That's why you see guys in NBA today scoring 50, 60, 70 points without a problem, because the court is real spread. But here in Europe, defense is key, and the lanes are really, really kind of locked in and closed. So you have to really be able to be really intelligent, knowing how to really read the players, knowing where to attack and knowing where to find your guys. And everything is a lot more team oriented here. You got to pass the ball around and really find a way to get a good shot in order to win out here. So that's the difference in the game in Europe and in the game in the NBA and the USA. It's a lot different.
Yeah. The American game, the NBA game has really changed. It's become much more positional. It's less plays, a lot more room. Has the game in Europe also changed? The same evolution in Europe, because you played for a very long time?
No, the game hasn't really changed a lot here in Europe. The game here in Europe is pretty much the same. It's always been really team oriented. Your bigs always were able to shoot, so it was never a surprise to see your center or your power forward stepping out shooting, because the systems out here are pretty much the systems that they're running the NBA today. Those are European systems. So that's the way that we've played for quite a long time, and they're still playing that way today. So it hasn't really changed much here in Europe, but it has changed in the NBA, and they have adapted to and adopted the European play.
Right. Are you a big celebrity in France? I mean, do the French people, obviously football, whatever they call it, soccer is the number 1 sport. But are basketball players celebrities in France?
No, yeah, we are. We're definitely considered celebrities. Even nowadays, I can go to a shopping center, go visit some friends in a different city, and random people will come up to me and say, "Are you Tony Stanley? Oh man, I used to see you play when I was a kid. You know, I'm older now, but when I was small, I used to see you play." And it happens a lot. So you are definitely considered a star out here when you're playing high level basketball.
Yeah. Do you think, the NBA, the game's not quite as physical as it was 20, 30 years ago, when there was a lot at the heels of the Pistons and the Indiana Pacers and Knicks, all that, the trash talk and the physicalness.
Yeah.
Is the game physical in Europe? Is there trash talking in Europe? And how about the kind of the mental aspect of it?
Here in Europe, it's definitely physical. They let you play. They'll let you play, especially if you're playing in EuroLeague, you're playing the European competition. The refs, they let you play. Here in France, it was physical in the beginning during the years that I played. In my early years, it was pretty physical. And then they started changing up, becoming a little bit softer, kind of like they did in the NBA, where it was just actually the referees were just calling everything, every touch, every time, it got less physical. So yeah, it was physical. It was really physical in the beginning, but now it's a lot less physical than it was before.
Yeah. Speaking of officials, I'm reminded of back in the time when the Dream Team played, and these officials would call like carries on like Michael Jordan and stuff. And you look at it, the European officials at the time, they didn't really care who you were. In America, the officials, the players carry the reputation with the officials, and back then they can get away with stuff. But I remember when the Dream Team was first exposed to European officials, they're like, what are these guys calling? What about the officiating in Europe? Is it much different? Do you think officiating is good there, and do you like the way they call the game?
You have a few officials that are pretty decent, but no, the officiating here is different. We're brought up different. We're bred different in the USA. So when we come out, a little bit contact doesn't hurt us. We don't really carry the ball as much when we dribble because you get called for a lot of carries in the USA already. So when you're learning your fundamentals in the USA, carrying the ball is not an option. Here in Europe, and which was surprising to me when the referees did call a game like that against the Dream Team, they carry the ball out here a lot. They get away with murder out here with carrying the ball.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why even today, when you look at NBA basketball, those guys carry the ball a lot too.
Yeah.
Because it's becoming more Europeanized.
Well, you mentioned
officiating is okay. You have a few good officials, but I wasn't really a big fan of the officials out here, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned European competition, and in Europe, it's a little bit different in that in each domestic competition. So each competition within a country, you compete for titles, and the teams that don't do so well go down to lower leagues and get relegated, and you can get promoted up to higher leagues. And then the top teams in the domestic league can qualify for European competitions against other teams that do well in their domestic leagues. We don't have this kind of competition in American sports. They're starting it in soccer a little bit. Do you like the structure of European sports in that your team can be relegated and you're more what we call minor league here or semi-pro league, or you can, if you do well, you can qualify for European competition. Do you enjoy that structure?
I like that. I think it's really, really good. It gives the smaller teams a chance to grow. It keeps the teams that are higher ranked, keep them on their feet. You got to be careful because at any given night, any given season, you drop a few games. If your goal is to go into a European competition, well, it keeps the level pretty high for the teams that are in the top four. But for the teams that are in the lower bracket, well, it gives them an opportunity to actually play up and to be able to move into Pro B, to move into Pro A, and to be able to have a chance to play at a higher level. When you have the same structure and the league is the league, and you don't really have a team dropping down or teams moving up, well, the competitive level isn't really the same. Your higher teams are pretty much going to always be your higher teams, and the lower teams are going to pretty much stay lower, and you're not going to have that motivation to really actually want to move up. Yeah. So I like the structuration. I think it's good. I think it challenges everybody and it keeps everybody humble.
So what Tony is talking about, like in America, once a team gets past a certain point, let's go back to the Houston Rockets in '85. They wanted to lose as many games as possible because they wanted to get the first round draft choice so they could draft either Ralph Sampson or Elijah. I forgot which one it was.
Yeah.
I think it was Ralph Sampson.
Ralph Sampson.
But anyway, they wanted to lose. So then the NBA instituted the lottery, so you couldn't do that. Still, late in the year, you have nothing to play for. You're not going to make the playoffs. The fans come in with bags over their head. They're upset. But it's really nothing to play for. Well, in Europe, you have something to play for because if you keep losing those games, your whole team, all the players,
you're going down.
You guys are going to be semi-pro players. You're not going to be in a top competition anymore. So it makes those games very interesting late in the year, where that doesn't happen. Do you think that's that's something that we should bring to America? Would you like to see that in America?
Well, no, the system in America is the way the system is in America. It's always worked that way. That system works pretty well out here in Europe because they don't have the budgets that we have in the USA. When you're talking about the NBA, you got a lot of money. So even the teams that are not doing well, they're still able to pay their players. You drop over here in Europe, now you got to find sponsors. You don't really have that problem in the NBA. So I think it's better, it's more stable, leaving the NBA the way that it is, the structuration that we have. But here in Europe, yeah, that can be a problem for a player. For example, an American that comes over and plays on a team and your team go down, well, it's going to be hard for the team, the club to find sponsors to be able to bring in other American players. And then now you're also taking a risk at messing your career up because, if you are playing on a losing team and that team drops, your shot at playing at a higher level team is pretty slim.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I said I think it's pretty good out here in Europe. It keeps everybody honest, keeps guys grinding, keeps guys hustling and really motivated.
But you don't think it would work in America the way we do sports?
No. I don't think that will work in America. No.
Yeah. So there was a soccer player named Jamie Vardy. You may have heard of Jamie Vardy, but he was in like the 5th league in European soccer. And his team, Leicester, they kept winning and went all the way up to the Premier League. And he became the leading scorer in the Premier League. Here's a guy that would never have been recruited anywhere, but he earned his way to the top in the millions and millions of dollars that he earned. So in a way, he made his own opportunity. He didn't need a scout to come to give him an NBA opportunity to play, maybe play in a D League or whatever. He earned his way. His team won, and he earned his way to the top. So in a way, it was really exciting. But you still don't think it would work in America just because of money reasons and the way Americans.
Yeah, the financial. Yeah, that really goes into the financial aspect. The NBA is pretty much set. The owners, they already got the budget coming in, the money is already there. So, it's not really that problem. I think that it's good here in Europe because basketball in the NBA and in the USA, the NBA is big. It always has been. Yeah. But here in Europe, that's not the case. You got soccer, Yeah. And even here you got handball. Handball is big here in Europe as well.
Yeah.
So the teams, the basketball teams are sometimes, if your club is not already in Pro B or Pro A level, which are the 2 top levels in France, it can be a challenge, but it can be motivating as well. So the system here, it works for the way that everything is structured here in Europe. I don't see that happening in the USA. I don't think it would be good for the USA.
Yeah. What's the environment like at one of these Euro competitions, the games? Is it really exciting? Is it really tense? And those are the games you really get up for?
Oh yeah. I mean, the European games, when I played in Montenegro, I remember the European games were it was really exciting because you played in really big arenas. The arenas that we play here in France, domestically, you'll have maybe 2,500 to 5,000 max. But when you're playing EuroLeague teams, that's a different ball game because you already got a different budget. And those arenas you're playing with, about 10,000, between 5,000 and 10,000 people. So it's a pretty exciting atmosphere, and it definitely is very motivating, and it's a pleasure to play in that kind of atmosphere. It's different than it is in the domestic leagues.
Yeah. Have you ever been on a team that's been promoted?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that feeling like?
It's winning a championship. That's what we're here for.
Right.
I think if you win a championship in EuroLeague, which is the highest level you can play in Europe, or if you win a championship and you move up from a team that's in National One, which is like the 3rd level, and you move up to the 2nd level, it is just as rewarding because you won the league, you won a championship, and it's not easy because there's always pretty stiff competition in the top 3 or 4 teams. So it's the same satisfaction, I think, winning a championship in the lower level as if you were playing in EuroLeague.
Yeah.
You can always say that you were champions. You got your medal and it's a really, really good feeling.
Yeah. And on the other hand, have you been on a team that's been relegated to a lower league?
No,
Okay.
I've never played on a team that went down almost one year, but we were saved at we were saved at the end. It went down to the last 2 games of the season,
Yeah.
and we were able to stay up. But I've never been on a team that went down.
Yeah. Were you in the highest league in France? Did you play in the highest league in France?
Yeah. I played in Pro A. Pro A is the highest league. Pro B is the second league, and the National One is the third league. So I played in the first league for about 9 years.
Awesome. Yeah.
For about 9 years, and I played in the second division. That's once I was 33 years old. I moved down to the second division and played 4 or 5 years in the second division.
But even
so, like I said, I played until I was 40 years old, and I played the lowest division that I played in was National One, and National One is actually the third division.
But you mentioned that the stadiums that you played at weren't that big. When you played in the top level of French, well, obviously they have pretty big. They have pretty big gym stadiums, don't they, or no?
When I say big, I'm talking about where I went to UD. UD, you packing in 13,500.
Right, gotcha.
Okay. For us, yeah, that's not really big, but when you got 2,500 to 4,000. Our arena that I played in when I was and I played in the team in Le Havre in Normandy, you could get 5,000 people in there, but you wouldn't see 5,000 people in the stands. You would get probably 2,500, maybe 3,000. So you weren't under the impression that you had a lot of people in there. Yeah. So it's not the same, but we did have we had really, really good games, because when you played in smaller gyms, those smaller gyms were packed. So you had really, really good, the environment was hot. It was, the fans are right on top of you, and you feeling the pressure, and that was good.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I think, I didn't really have a problem with playing in the fact that the gyms weren't as big in here in Europe or here in France as they were back home or in EuroLeague.
Yeah. What are the benefits and challenges to playing with a team that's also connected to other pro teams? Like they have a soccer team as well. They may have a handball team. Like I think you mentioned Le Havre. I know they have a pro soccer team as well. Is there benefits to being in a club that also has a soccer team, or is it better to have a standalone basketball team?
No, I think that was one of the downfalls of the team in Le Havre. In Le Havre, we had a team in Pro A, so I played there for 3 years, and it was cool. But they always had problems getting bigger budget, getting more money, because the city is going to support all of the sports teams, because they want everybody, to move up to different levels, higher levels, which is really good for the city. But when you have a soccer team there, and the soccer team in Le Havre was second division, they weren't in the same club. They had their own club.
Oh, their own club. Okay.
So the soccer club was the HAC, and our club was STB, St. Thomas Basket. They were sucking in all of the money from the city. So when we wanted to go out and get bigger players, we couldn't, because we were always limited with our budget. And so it's cool for the city when you have different sports teams there. But it's not cool for the basketball team, because basketball always comes second to soccer.
Yeah.
And having a club where you have different sports in the same club is kind of a disadvantage as well, because when I played in National One in my last few years, we had a handball team, we had a women's second league division team, and we were in the third division. So we weren't even considered the priority in terms of having a gym. Practice times and all of that was changed. It was arranged. The handball was in the first division, so they were getting all of the money. The women's team was in the second division, which was higher than us. So they had priority over us in the gym. And then it was us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like being back in high school when you're fighting the other winter sports teams for the big gym. So did you see your classmate, your fellow Washington and Liberty graduate Crawford Palmer overseas a lot? Because I know he
played against Crawford. I played against Crawford.
Okay.
My first 2 years out. when I was playing in Cholet. Crawford was playing in Strasbourg.
Okay.
And I did have the opportunity to play against Crawford before he retired.
Hmm.
So
That's
yeah, I
great.
ran into Crawford a few times in the beginning of my career when I first came out here, but Crawford was already older, so he was already heading towards retirement at that time.
Yeah, he's had quite a career. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Tony, you in college you had some incredible game-winning exploits. University of Maryland. We'll get to the Maui Classic, and then call it the Miracle of Millet or whatever when you in
Yeah,
Miami or
in
so.
Miami, Ohio.
Yeah. Have you had those moments in Europe where you hit those game-winning shots and ended up on L'Equipe, the sporting newspaper in France? Did you have those? Did you also have those big moments in France that made front page
Oh, yeah.
news? Because you were known for that in America.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That continued. I kept doing that everywhere I went. I've always had those moments where I was able to knock down a game winner. And in terms of having your face on the newspaper, that was pretty much every week. That was every week, especially if you're in a town that has a really good team, a Pro A team, and you don't have the other sports teams around taking the money. So now the basketball is the main feature, and of course you're going to have your name all over. I have posters all over the city, with my with me on it and representing the club. It's been yeah, I've had quite a few moments, quite a few game winners. Was able to win a couple championships as well, and it was it continued. It definitely continued.
Yeah. What about the French players? Where are they coming from? Do they have a pickup culture in France? I mean, we don't have much of a pickup culture left in America, but do they have that, or do most of the players come from academies like they would in soccer?
Pickups, no, they have what they call formation centers. A lot of the Pro A clubs, first division clubs, and some of the second division clubs, they have formation centers where they're able to recruit younger talent from different cities. It could be some kids from Guadeloupe, because Guadeloupe is considered French as well. They can come from Martinique Islands as well, or Guyana, and they'll bring them here in France, and they'll come and they'll play in these formation systems. They'll go to school. The club will house them, take care of them, and they're practicing like 3 times a day. But at least they're able to develop in that fashion. And it's the same way that Tony Parker came up as well. He came up in the same system. He was in a small club next to Le Havre where I played, and then he was able to develop, and he was bigger than that small club where he actually started and trained. So he was able to go to the big club center of formation in Paris, and that's where he was able to start his professional career with Paris basket racing afterwards. So the structuration is like that. Normally, when you have a club in the first division, your obligation is to have a formation center for the kids to give them a chance to develop and become professional. But all of the clubs don't have that formation center.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's how the structuration of the kids having the opportunity to play professional is here.
Yeah. Race relations in France. How have you found race relations generally? Have you generally got along well, or has it been a mixed bag like it is in most places?
The race relations are great out here. Great. You didn't have those kind of problems with race like we have back home. I've never ran into any problems at all, but I can't say that for some Africans that maybe came from Cameroon or came from different countries in Africa that tried to come here and make a life for themselves here. It was different for me because even though I'm African American, I'm still American, and they put us a little bit more on a higher pedestal. We speak English, so we don't speak the language, and we get a lot more respect, and they will never look at us like that. We're looked to as stars.
They had those.
So I never came across those kind of problems. I never ever had any kind of racial interaction whatsoever. I just really think that they were really, really cool out here. And I think that was a major reason and the reason why I wanted to stay.
That's interesting. So most of the problems are former colonials. There's that colonial relationship that I'm sure remains, like we have here, or like we have other places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. I was prepared for you to say, well, there's racism everywhere. It's very enlightening to hear that your view. How about politics? Now, since you've been away, American politics has gone crazy. We've had our ups and downs, and it's been crazy. Do people stop you and ask you about American politics a lot, and want you to give your opinion about back home?
All the time. All the time. When Obama, became president, I had a lot of journalists calling me and asking my opinion about it, and of course I was ecstatic. I was happy. I was proud, and I was able to express that. But then when you get Trump, who becomes president afterwards, well, they wanted to know, well, what is wrong with your country? What are they doing? I'm like, hey, listen, I don't know. I'm not there. I'm here. So, but they're always interested in American politics. They want to know why we were able to put somebody like Trump in office, and I do get into a lot of political debates at times, because the countries are ran differently. The systems are different. Health system is different than it is in the USA than it is in France. So politics, we speak about politics a lot here in France, especially the people that are interested in American politics.
Yeah. And also, how do you feel about more of a socialist type country where you have limits on the amount of time people can work a week, where retirement is a little bit more established, healthcare is provided by for the government on a more organized basis? How do you feel about that kind of system? Has it changed your viewpoint from when you left America?
Actually, it was one of the reasons why I stayed as well here in France, because that's the system that we have here. Here in France, you pay taxes. Your taxes are, you pay a decent amount of taxes, but you're covered. You're covered on everything. You get sick and you need to go to the hospital. You're going to get operated on right away. They're not going to be searching your wallet to see what kind of insurance you have. You don't pay a lot insurance. When you need medicine, you go to the pharmacy and you'll probably pay €1 or €2 because it's already in the system. It's already in the health system. The health system is really, really stable. And at least, you don't have to worry about any health issues. I think that the system here works really well for the retirement as well. It's starting to become more like the USA now, but here you retire at the age of 62 and you work, you're limited to 35 hours a week. You're not supposed to work more than 35 hours a week. That's the law. If you work more than 35 hours a week, then, it's somewhat considered a violation. So you're protected with this kind of system, the social system that I think that Obama was trying to put in place in the USA. And, it's more beneficial.
What about the things in America that you miss? I mean, besides friends and family and stuff, but what about the parts of our system that you think we have right? Are there things about the American way that you miss?
Well, being able to really go out and dream, the American dream, you can make a penny into a million. That mentality, the work ethic, not having a problem with going out, working 50 hours, 60 hours. That's, it's a different kind of mentality. It's a mentality I think that they need out here. But honestly, what do I miss back home is really more so family, getting together with friends and just speaking the language more so. Are the things that I really miss about being back home. Otherwise, I'm really, really comfortable here in France. It's a really beautiful culture. You can learn, you got a lot to learn out here. You can visit a whole lot of different places, and it's so much history. The country is so old. It's just so much to soak in. You never get bored here. There's always something to visit. There's always something that you can learn, and the food is just excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. You eat good out here. You eating really, really healthy.
Yeah.
Even though I do miss my fried chicken from time to time.
Yeah.
You know, out here you're eating real good. You're eating really, really good quality meat, you know. And the pastries.
Yeah.
What do you want me to say?
And the bread and the butter.
And the wine.
And the wine and the coffee. Est-ce que tu parles français?
Bien sûr que oui. Bien sûr que oui, je parle français. Bah oui.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Tony. You had an incredible career there. I wish I would have been able to watch you play. You know, I've heard legend of you. Even when I officiated, I don't think I ever got a chance to see you play. And people just rave about you. Oliver, I don't know if you saw my interview with Oliver, just said about the world, about how you played, not your game, and all the people you competed against in Northern Virginia. Just think the world of you. Let's go back to those days. I know you were born in Pittsburgh. When did your family?
I was born in Philly. I was born in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Cool.
You need to get that and to change the Wikipedia on you.
Yeah, I don't know who created that Wikipedia page on one time. I have no idea who created that.
Exactly. So anyway, when did you come to Arlington and how'd you get started in basketball?
I moved to Arlington when I was 14, going on 15 years old. My freshman year in high school. I graduated middle school in Philadelphia, and decided to move to Arlington with my aunt, who is also my godmother.
Okay.
And she felt like it would be a better opportunity for me to get a better education in the high school system in Virginia than in Philadelphia, because Philadelphia was pretty rough, you know. And if you graduated high school in Philly, wasn't sure that you was going to be able to go to college, but if you go to, you know, Washington Lee or Yorktown, you know, you definitely had a chance at in getting into a university where we're more respected. So
you were
that's how I ended up coming down to Virginia, to Arlington.
You were the Fresh Prince of Arlington.
Yeah, we can say that.
Yeah. So did you
coming down there with the Philly swag? Yeah.
yeah. Born and raised. So, but you had to play basketball in Philadelphia. So who'd you get started? Yeah. I know in Philadelphia they play a lot of 21. I don't know if people play that. That's a big game in Philly because my roommate in college went to Philly. All they wanted to play was 21. They didn't want to play full court and all that stuff. It was all every man for himself. That's why they like to play.
Yeah, 21. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So who taught you how to play basketball? Who are your earliest heroes?
Well, when I was younger, I started really playing. I played. I can't even not remember when I didn't play basketball. Honestly, from the time I was probably 5 years old to 6 years old. But it's true in Philly. You know, you always got good pickup games in the playground right down the street, and you know, I grew up in the area where Bo Kimball and Hank Gathers played. They were my neighbors. Yeah. Bo Kimball lived 3 doors from me. So you can kind of understand what basketball meant to our neighborhood at that time. And you know, you grew up, those were kind of your role models in a sense, because you got Bo Kimball, who lives 3 doors down from you. You got Hank Gathers, which, you know, was unfortunate, you know, what happened to him at Loyola Marymount. But you've seen these kind of guys coming up in the hood, and you know, doing great things afterwards, being able to make it, you know, to get recruited from high school, winning high school championship, going on to Loyola Marymount, LSU before, and then Bo really being able to take it to the next level, going into the NBA. So you had a lot of motivation. Those were like kind of early heroes for me coming up. Yeah. After I played a lot of basketball in the Police Athletic League. How? And that's where a lot of the kids from the inner city were able to go. And you had a safe haven where you're able to play basketball inside, and you were protected. You didn't have to worry about, you know, any craziness going on. And playing in the Powell Police Athletic League, it allowed us to have different national tournaments. And so I played Powell basketball for quite a long time, until I was 14 years old. And we actually were champions. We were national champions in the Police Athletic League in Philly. And yeah, when I was 14 years old, we won a national championship. Had a chance to play against Chris Webber's brother.
Oh, wow. Well, you're one of the nicest techniques, Swedish shots I've ever seen. Your technique is perfect. I mean, the way the ball comes off. Where did you learn your shot mechanics? Someone had to.
Honestly, I had a little awkward kind of Larry Bird shot in the sense where it kind of went behind the head a little bit and flicked it. And honestly, when I kept shooting like that throughout my freshman year, even though it was cool, my jump shot was okay. It was Bobby Dobson that actually worked on my technique and told me, if you want to be a real good shooter and you want to be consistent, then you got to break your shot down and change your technique. And he showed me. And the moment he showed me the way that I really need to shoot to align my arm, my elbow, and make sure that I was always squared to the basket, well, he didn't have to say anything else to me after that. I was in the gym every day. Wow. I was in the gym every day. Every time I had an opportunity to go to TJ, I was at TJ. I spent all my time in the gym, and I was just working on it because I knew that sophomore year, I wanted to be playing varsity basketball, and I wanted to be that guy. I had a lot to prove because I was the guy from Philly. I was the guy that everybody kind of wasn't rooting for at that time. So, I had a chip on my shoulder, and I went out and worked and changed my form. And of course, it's true. I grew 3 inches over the summer, and the jump shot came along with it, and the rest is history.
How did you meet Bobby? Bobby wasn't your coach. Was he your coach?
Bobby was Coach Phillips. Phillips was the coach my freshman year. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't too keen on freshmen playing in varsity, right? Even though I should have been on that varsity squad right out the gates. I think Tony Bentley was happy because he landed me on JV.
Okay, he played for Coach Bentley.
Yeah, Bentley was my first coach at WNL. He was the coach for the varsity he was assistant for varsity, but he was the coach of the JV squad.
Right.
Him and Horace Jenkins was Horace Willis was the coach for the freshman squad. So I had those two guys my first year as a freshman. And when the JV season was over, Phillips brought me up for the playoffs on varsity right before my freshman year was over.
That's awesome.
And then they let Phillips go, and that's when Bobby Dobson came in and took the job. I think Mr. Bethel brought Bobby Dobson in.
Okay, so your junior year, Bobby was the coach.
My sophomore year.
Oh, sophomore year. Okay. So Bobby was
my sophomore year. Yep. Yeah. And once I met Bobby, it was no looking back. He looked at me. He saw the talent that I had already, and then he saw that I was willing to work, and I was listening all the time. And I was just a student. I just wanted to learn everything I could, and the rest is history. That was my guy. I mean, he really looked out and taught me a lot.
So Bobby and I grew up playing against each other. We're in the same year. And I was always on Braddock Road. And so we had a huge number of kids to choose from. Bobby played for James Lee, and they had good athletes, but it was a smaller club. So like in basketball, they had Gus Hill, Bobby. I forgot who else they had. In football, they had Tony Harris and Bobby. And we would beat them because we just had a bigger club. But those guys were all ballers. So I grew up playing against Bobby and competing against Bobby.
Coach Dobson can play. He can play. Oh, yeah. I heard a lot of stories about him. They said he can go, man.
Oh, he can go. Great passer. I'm not going to talk about him because last time I talked about him, he called me up and said, "Julian, I heard you talking about my game." Bobby can play.
That's Bobby Dobb, man. That's Bobby Dobb.
Now at the time, Washington Lee was in the shadow of Wakefield in basketball. Or were you happy to be playing at Washington Lee, or did you want to go to Wakefield?
I was happy at Washington Lee when Coach Dobson was hired.
Right. Okay.
Because I wasn't really liking the situation with Phillips, to be honest. He's a great guy. It was nothing personally against him, but I never understood how I didn't have my spot on the varsity team. I think that the whole thinking that varsity is reserved for juniors and seniors, just it wasn't fair. And so once Bobby Dobson came in, I was cool. We had pretty good players already at WNL at that time, and when he came in, it was just a fresh. It was a new start, and it was good for me. Even though I had Wakefield constantly coming at me, knocking on the door, like you need to come on and play at Wakefield. I was really cool with Mark Smith and Darvell Harris and Semi Brown and all of those guys because I lived in the Wakefield district. I was supposed to go to Wakefield, but because my aunt worked for Arlington County Public Schools, I was able to go to Washington Lee. So it was exception.
Right.
So you can imagine what it's like in where I lived at. I was always around the Wakefield guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And they got some,
But
yeah.
it was
they got
beautiful
some-
playing for Washington Lee.
Well, they got some strange busing because even Coach Bentley, he lived down in the valley. He ended up going to Washington Lee too. So it was kind of funny how they had the boundaries were different back then.
Yeah, they changed it. Yeah. Even the guys on Johnson Hill ended up going to Washington Lee, and they ended up changing it up later. And a lot of those guys ended up going over to Wakefield. So yeah, you always had that situation as well, but that didn't have any effect on me because I was there because of the fact that my aunt worked for Arlington County Public Schools. So I wasn't really affected by the boundaries changing and all of that.
Yeah. What kind of coach was Bobby? Now, obviously, he taught you how to shoot, which was very important to your career. Who knows where you would have been if you didn't change your shot? Well, what other kind of what other things did you learn from Coach Dobson?
Oh, Bobby taught me. He taught me a lot. So Bobby taught me a lot. Work ethic. He was saying if you want to be the best, if you want to go to college and you want to have a chance to go and play professional basketball, it's up to you. You got to put the work in. And he always looked out for me in that aspect. Anytime I wanted to go and work out, he was right there with me. And the fact that he ran, the systems through me as well, definitely gave me a lot of confidence. He gave me a lot of confidence. He always put me in contact with people that were able to work me out and to make me better. So it was a lot with Bob. Bob wasn't just basketball. He taught me a lot as well, just about being a young man and being responsible and making sure that my grades were always cool, not having no problems with eligibility. I learned a lot from him, and Tony Bentley as well, and Horace as well, because like I said, I was always in the gym all of the time, so I always bumped into Horace. I played against Horace a lot, so he used to kill me.
That's why they call him Buck.
Buck was the master and ones, and I was like, yeah, okay. So when you got guys like Tony Bentley behind you, you got Horace, who's actually out there on the court playing against you at that time because he could still go. And then you got Bobby, who's helping you with the mental aspect and really giving you a lot of good advice. You can't ask for a better trio. Yeah. As a young man coming up in high school.
Yeah. Buck has his son's a nice player. He's going to be a nice player. He's playing for Coach Bentley right now. So how'd your team do? So you came up. Stewart was tough at the time. They had Byron Hall was about your year. They had some nice
brothers.
Yeah, Puryear, that's right. They had a nice squad. I think Mike Yohe was coaching them. Wakefield, as we talked about, was strong. I think you were maybe a year or two before Rob Anderson was at Yorktown, maybe, right? Or maybe you and Rob.
Rob was at Yorktown when I was at WNL.
Okay, so how'd the team do? And talk about some of those rivalries that you guys had.
Oh man, we did pretty well during the years that I played there. We ended up winning the district. I think we won the district 2 years out of the 3. Never went far in the regionals. That we always had a problem with getting out of region. But in the district, we were tough. We were tough. We were a force to be reckoned with because even though you had great teams in Stewart with the Puryear brothers, like you said, you had Wakefield, who was a force to be reckoned with as well, with Kenny Staten and those guys. We just always found a way to come out on top, and we had a tough squad. I had Jerome McPhail with me, Marcus Stewart, who was a beast down low. You had Kenny Whitehead, who was young, but he was just the tallest player in the district. Tony Puryear on the wing. So we had a really tall squad. When you look at it, we had a real tall squad. We were like 6'6" or 6'7" on average.
Wow.
When you look at that squad, I was 6'4". Jerome was the smallest on the team. Afterwards, you had Tony, who was 6'6", Marcus, who was like 6'7" as well. And then you had Kenny Whitehead, who just spurted, and he was almost 7 foot, we had a nice squad. We had a hit squad, and we really did well. Those years were really good years at Washington Lee. I was just disappointed that we weren't able to get out of the regions, and we lost to, I think it was Chantilly. I really wanted a state championship, and I think we had a team that could have got it done.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it didn't happen, and we ended up losing to Chantilly in my senior year.
Yeah. Bobby got to the state semis last state semis. Did he got to? Yeah, or maybe quarters. But yeah, he's still chasing it. He's still doing a great job. So you end up going to Dayton and play for my one of my guys in my wedding was Gerald Purnell, Oliver's brother. So I've known Oliver for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up going to the University of Dayton, which is a great place to play basketball. They got crazy support for that team. Folks might not know that, but it's a basketball crazy area, not too far from Indiana, which we know is crazy. How'd you end up at University of Dayton, and what did you think about Coach Purnell?
How did I end up at University of Dayton? Coach Purnell, definitely great guy, great coach. Coach Smith, honestly, was the guy that Frank Smith. Yeah, Coach Smith, Frank Smith. Yeah. Frank is a really good guy, real smooth, smooth talking, cool, easygoing guy. It was easy to talk to Frank, and it definitely helped having Kobe Turner there, because Kobe was my guy in high school as well. So when you got Kobe out there already, and we were the top two leading scorers in Northern Virginia my junior year, and it was his senior year. It was kind of easy for me to actually end up at UD. Once I went on my visit to UD and I saw how, they had 13,500 people there, and I just saw how crazy they were when they knew that I was going to visit. And I just imagined myself instantaneously playing there. I'm like, I would love to play in this atmosphere. Like, this is electrical. This is incredible. And when I came back from that visit, I think I had already knew where I was going to go. And it's true. I didn't take any other visits afterwards. I still had 2 more visits left, and I didn't take any other visits afterwards because I was sold on Dayton. Coach Purnell was a real serious guy, and really convincing. And you got Frank Smith, and you had Kobe Turner there. Well, didn't need much more.
Yeah. What's Coach Purnell like to play for?
Coach Purnell it was great playing for Coach Purnell. It was great playing for Coach Purnell. Coach Purnell, he kept you humble. Coach kept you humble. Even though coming in as a freshman, I was definitely one of the best players on the team for sure. And offensively, I can pretty much score anywhere I wanted to, however I wanted to. If it was getting to the basket, if it was shooting the 3, or whatever, it took. The thing that I loved about Coach Purnell was he really didn't care about how good you were offensively. He said, as athletic as you are, as good as you are offensively, that means that you should be just as great on defense. So he told me, if you want time on this court, you got to earn it on defense, because I already know what you can do offensively. And when he told me that, I was like, yeah, okay, this is definitely a good fit for me. This is definitely my guy. And going on from there, he was very, very fundamental. He was very team oriented, wanted you to run the system, and just letting you know that there's no I in team. Together everyone achieves more. And that's what he preached to us all the time, and that's what he really believed in. And you can see it in the way that he coached, his attitude towards his players. He really protected his players. He went out on a limb for you no matter what, and was just a really, really great guy. Wasn't even just a question about being a really good coach, a great coach, but he was a really good man, and he taught me how to be a man as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, he is an awesome guy. Well, if you look at your statistics, you have some of the most consistent statistics I've ever seen for a college player. Generally, there's a learning curve. So a player starts out, at certain points per game, and then, by their junior, senior year, they know what they're doing, and their production goes up. That's, I'd say 90% of players are like that. Well, you average 13 points a game your first year, and you average 15 your second year, 15 your third year, and 15.9 your fourth year. you were amazingly consistent, about the same shooting percentage for your career. What was the key for you getting comfortable so quickly and playing like an experienced player from your very first game?
Well, playing in Coach Purnell's system, you'll have opportunities to have nights where you'll come in and you'll pour in 25 or 30, but it wasn't the type of system where like the guys in UC Cincinnati was playing, where they were running and gunning. We had real discipline, fundamental basketball, and we knew how to take good shots. So when you're working the ball around and you're moving it in the system, you're not going to have a whole lot of possessions. So you're not going to have a lot of high scoring games, but it did create a situation for you to be real stable and real consistent, because you knew that the shots that you were going to take were good shots. Those are the things that you worked on in practice. Those are the things that coach killed you about. If you took a bad shot, he didn't care if you made it. It was a bad shot. It's not what we wanted. So that could kind of explain the reason why I was able to stay somewhat consistent, and I didn't really go up to 19 and 20 points. I've had big games, but I've always stayed consistent in that aspect because of the system that we ran with Oliver Purnell.
Yeah. Well, you had a big win your first year. You guys beat George Washington. At the time, they were nationally ranked in your conference. Do you remember that win? It was, I think it was early in the season.
GW, yeah. I think GW was definitely a good win, but I think the biggest win that we had that year, I think it was against Temple. Temple was I think Temple was maybe 7th or 8th.
Wow, yeah.
Country, and I remember that was my freshman year, and we got him. We beat him at home, and actually that was a buzzer beater. A shot that I hit with 2 seconds left, and we were able to get the win. And GW was big. They had Shante Rogers. They had a really, really tough squad as well. And you guys
won the Atlantic 10 that year.
My freshman year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you won the Atlantic 10.
Yeah. With Big Ryan Perryman. Yeah. We had a pretty good squad. We had a really, really tough squad. We had a really tough squad that year.
Well, your second year, you went to 5th place in the conference, but your third year, you picked up a player named Brooks Hall, was a really nice guard. And that was the year.
Local guy. Yep.
Yeah, local guy. But that was the year you guys beat Kentucky. Do you remember beating Kentucky?
Oh, yeah. You can't forget that. You can't forget beating Kentucky. That was against Keith Bogans. Bogans was there at that time, Yeah. We beat Kentucky that year. We beat Louisville that year as well. We had a lot of big games, big wins. We beat Miami of Ohio. They were pretty good at that year as well. We had a lot of big. Marquette was really, really good at that time. And who else did we? We had a really, really good year. We had a lot of big games on the schedule that year. Yeah, and we really did we did a good job, because we ended up getting to the NCAA tournament that year. Yeah, and Brooks was definitely instrumental in a lot of that, because you had a freshman. But yeah, Brooks coming in was really, really he was really good as a freshman. Yeah, he was really good. That kid was really good. He looked like a junior his freshman year.
Yeah, well, kind of like you. You did the same thing. So,
I was more aggressive, more, rah. Brooks was real quiet, laid back, really, 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 really mature as a freshman. Yeah. In that aspect.
Yeah. Well, personally, you had an incredible year, your senior year. The team didn't do great. You had an NIT run, which was nice, but you guys played in the Maui Classic, I believe. And unfortunately, your mother passed while I believe you're in Hawaii. But you're in a consolation
right game against Arizona.
Yeah, but you lost to Arizona, unfortunately, but you're able to pull it together, and you guys played Maryland, and obviously, a team you grew up seeing, hearing all about Maryland, and at least by the time you moved here, and you were able to hit an incredible shot. A dagger, and you guys beat Maryland in the Maui Classic. Folks can watch that video on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, from the corner. Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that game?
Oh yeah, like it was yesterday. That tournament, I'll never forget. That tournament is definitely is definitely left a mark on me.
Yeah. So, well, then just 2 weeks later, this is an unbelievable run you had. They called it the Miracle at Millette. It was
Mhm.
at Miami University, and you guys were way down, and you just shot the lights out, and you guys were able to come back and beat an arch rival in a conference game. So, what happened in the Miracle at Millette?
Well, the Miracle Millet. Well, you got to kind of go back into the Maui Classic at that time because that first game in Maui when we beat Connecticut. They were top ranked. They were in the top 10.
Oh, that's
Then
right.
you play the second game we played against Arizona, and they were number 2, I think, at that time.
Wow.
Arizona was number 2 or number 1 at that time, and yeah, that game was I don't know what it was. I didn't feel really well in the first half. And I didn't know why. And then of course, I found out later on that night when we got back to the hotel that my mother had passed. I had a good second half, and we were playing against Gilbert Arenas, Richard Jefferson,
Wow.
Walton. Yeah, you had 3 NBA guys on that squad, and so it was a heck of an experience. And then of course, when I went back to the hotel, my grandmother was just like, stay and play. Don't come back home because Coach Purnell and Coach Smith were like, you can go home right now if you want to. That's totally normal. You need to be with your family or whatever. And my grandmother said, no, your mom would want you to be there with your team. There's nothing you can do here with us right now. And so, when I came out in that game in Maryland, I was somewhat I was concentrated. I was in a whole nother zone. And it kind of went by as a blur, but I stayed really motivated throughout that time because I wanted to get to the NBA at that time. You had Maryland, you had Connecticut, you had Arizona, you had Juan Dixon, you had Richard Jefferson, you had Gilbert Arenas. The guys that were actually top shooting guards were on my list. I had a hit list that year, and I knew the games that I wanted to play and the guys that I wanted to really show out so that I was able to get drafted in the NBA. So that tournament was kind of monumental in a sense. And so when we finished that tournament and we did as good as we did, going into Miami, I was just still in that zone. I still had that motivation from, in a sense, losing my mother. I turned that into something really, really positive and just said, my season is dedicated to her. Everything I do, I'm going to do for her. And so I had a spirit inside of me that just said, you don't never, ever let anything up. You never give up, no matter what the situation is like. And that comes into the game against Miami. We were down, looked like we were going to lose. And I was just waiting to get just a window, just a little bit of light. And the moment where Juby Johnson, who defended me really well the whole game, he slipped up, and that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. I caught fire at the end, and that was it. We knew when I hit the first 2, I said it's over. I said it was over. I hit the third one, and that was it. Wrap it up. And it's crazy because I ended up playing with Juby Johnson here in Pro A here in France years later.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, as a non-shooter, I was a point guard, but you just love to have that kind of power to be able to just knock down shots and change the game like you could. Well, look, after that great start to the season didn't go well. You were 5th place that year. What do you think was the challenge that year? Why weren't you able to repeat? Or is repeating is always tough?
Well, that year, I don't know what it was. We lost the games that we lost were really nail biters. 1 point, 2 points. It was difficult for us to close out those close games.
Yeah.
We had a lot of games that we lost. Out of 5 or 6 games, they were all within 1 point or 2 points. We had really heartbreaking losses.
Yeah.
And it didn't, we weren't missing that much, but we couldn't pull it out like we were able to pull it out the year before.
Yeah.
And it was it was definitely different. My junior year and my senior year, you had Kobe Turner with me. Kobe was big shot Kobe. It was the Cobra. You knew that you had somebody else on on the other side that was going to really be able to knock down that open shot, and it freed me up a lot as well. So when you got guys like Kobe that's there with you, and in that year, in my senior year, I was with a lot of younger guys. The only seniors on the team was me, Gamal Gilchrist, who was a walk-on. We had a lot of young guys. Brooks was good, but we had young guys. We had Sean Finn, Nate Green, who was really, really solid, and even David Morris was really solid as well. But I think we needed a little bit more experience.
Yeah,
and that's what we were missing at the end to pull out those games that we really needed.
Well, look, you had a fantastic career. Your team did wonderfully. When you look back on it, and Oliver said that you're the kind of player that can play in the NBA. That's when I interviewed him. He said that about you. When you look back on your career, what is the difference between a guy like you who had a great career in Europe, you and the guys who make the NBA? What is the difference between guys who make it and other guys who have great careers in Europe?
I think it comes down to the school that you go to plays a role. UD was a great school, great university. We had a great. I had a great 4 years there at UD. We turned the program around completely with Oliver Purnell there, and made it to the NCAA tournament. But the kind of basketball that we played, it allowed me to be known, but it didn't allow me to really showcase what the systems that Arizona was running, that Cincinnati was running, that Kentucky was running, Kansas. They played a different style of basketball. And I think that is what makes a difference in some of those players who I thought that I was probably on the same level or even better than. And they were able to get into the NBA, and me, I wasn't able to get into the NBA because of the fact that I didn't have that system that really pushed me to really be able to go out and explode like all the time consistently.
Yeah.
And so that's not the fault of Coach Purnell, or it's not it's not the fault of going to UD. But I think that when you're in a system that allows you to really, really get out and just go and cut loose and play a little bit more freely, well, you're able to really showcase your talent a little bit more.
Yeah. Well,
and so that was a difference. But it's also what made me a great European player, playing for Purnell. So it had an upside,
Yeah. Well, once you had success in Europe, playing in top leagues and going to Euro and stuff, did the NBA teams keep scouting you? They're like, well, maybe Tony can make it now, because a lot of European players now are coming over later. More and more, you're seeing that in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, a lot of guys that don't have a shot right out of the NBA, right out of college, they'll come over in Europe and play a year, play a two, and then they'll go back and play in the summer league. Exactly what I did. I played in Cholet my first year. I came back. And ended up playing the second year. And after my second season, I ended up going to play for Dallas. And I played for Dallas in the summer league in Boston, the Boston Shootout. And played really well for him. Was the leading scorer on that squad as well. And I heard, and they told me that I was on the 15-man roster. Mm-hmm. But they wanted me to come back to vet camp. Me being in Europe for 2 years already, having other big-time European teams knocking on my door for EuroLeague, for example, the teams from Montenegro, so on and so forth, I wanted a guaranteed contract. I'm like, you guys got to put something on the table, put something in writing, because if I'm going to take this risk, I also take a risk of getting hurt. If I get hurt in vet camp, now I'm not going to have a contract with you guys, but I'm not going to have a contract in Europe as well. Yeah. So I wanted something concrete, something in black and white, and they couldn't guarantee that. So I went with the money and played in Europe and played in Montenegro and in the EuroLeague competition, which for me, I never regretted because, like I said, it was a big contract, and and it was a beautiful experience. I played on the highest level in Europe there.
Yeah. So, well, Tony, this has been great, man. It's nice to meet you again. I heard so much about the legend of Tony Stanley. You know, the jump shot. I've watched your games on TV. I did, but my last question would be, if you had to give a young Tony Stanley advice, you know, after you've had quite a journey around the world, got to see a lot, had tremendous success. But how would you advise a young Tony Stanley? If you had to give him advice, what would you say to him?
It's a lot, but to wrap it up, it would be really to always stay humble, keep your feet on the ground, and stay hungry. Don't be scared to get in the gym and to work. The work ethic is the most important thing that we can develop, because it's not only something that's going to help us in basketball, but it's going to help us in life.
Yeah.
So don't be scared to work. Go into the gym when you know that everybody else is sleeping, and keep that work ethic in everything that you do.
Yeah. Well, look, Tony, this has been great. I know you have a busy night, and I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. This has been great.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, Julian. I really appreciate the invite. Really.
Yeah. I just wish I could have seen you play more in Europe. I love France. I've traveled there. I think it's a beautiful country. I love the history. I love going to the churches and just sitting there. It's just fun.
Yeah, the cathedrals are beautiful out here.
It's just unreal. I love it there. So I wish I would have gotten a chance to see you play. But it's great to be in touch, and let's keep in touch. And maybe I can on a future podcast I can get you with some other European players or whatever. We can just talk about.
With pleasure.
Yeah. So look, okay, Tony. Look, man, have a great evening. I know you're in a rush. Do your thing, buddy.
No, it's not a problem. Everything is good.
Yeah, we'll be in contact. Okay, buddy.
All right. Take care, Julian. Thanks a lot.
Man. All righty, man. Yeah, you too.